Join the VLGA and LGIU for their next Global Executive Live panel on Thursday the 22nd of May, addressing a pressing issue for local government. This webinar will explore the experiences and lessons from across the globe when it comes to civility in public life. Hear from experts about what they're observing, the reasons for a decline in civility, and the impact this is having on retaining talent and promoting diversity. Tickets are free for VLGA members and alumni, and $60 for non-members, excluding GST. Head to the VLGA website to find out more and secure your place. And we look forward to seeing you at the Global Executive Live panel Thursday the 22nd of May from 5:30 p.m. A mayor resigns as the suspension of another takes effect. The surprise unretirement of a former council CEO. A Melbourne council to trial 30 km/h speed limits. Medical dramas for 2 New South Wales mayors. IPART makes its ruling on 6 special rate variation applications. The eye-watering cost of New South Wales's road maintenance backlog revealed. A group of Queensland councillors under investigation. And a Lord Mayor lays down the law to sniggering councillors. I'm Chris Eddy. Welcome to the Local Government News Roundup. Also today, what can your council do to help with the transition to electric vehicles? I'm joined by Cameron Rimington from the Electric Vehicle Council to talk about a new resource now available for councils across the country. The Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, with the Global Executive Panel on Civility in Public Life coming up on the 22nd of May. And support comes from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. It's Friday the 16th of May and I have much to share with you today. Let's get into the news out of Victoria firstly. And Golden Plains Shire Councillor Sarah Hayden has resigned her role as mayor, citing the need to make space for other leaders and the toll that recent events have taken on her health. She will continue to serve as a councillor. The council has called an unscheduled meeting for next Tuesday morning to elect its new mayor. Councillor Hayden said her decision aims to provide stability to the Shire and allow the council to refocus on delivering core services to the community. Victorian Minister for Women Natalie Hutchins has weighed in on the issue via social media this week, expressing her outrage that women are, quote, still bullied out of public life in 2025. Ms Hutchins said she was angry about the press taking photos from old social media posts and using them with an unrelated news story, describing outdated and misogynistic views that have been weaponised against Councillor Hayden. She said women can get dressed up and have a drink and that has no relevance to their ability to do their jobs. At Baw Shire, the council has confirmed the suspension of its mayor, Councillor Danny Goss, following an independent arbitration process which found him in breach of conduct standards during the previous council term. The 21-day suspension took effect from yesterday, the 15th of May, and during the suspension period, Deputy Mayor Councillor Tricia Jones will support the running of council meetings and briefings. Councillor Goss used his mayoral minutes segment at the council meeting on Wednesday evening to respond to the arbitration outcome, declaring he would return in 3 weeks, determined to make a positive difference to the Shire. He said it was a shame that the process has cost ratepayers thousands of dollars and that was not of his doing. Former Whittlesea Council CEO and ex-Victoria Police Commissioner Simon Overland has come out of retirement, joining Moonee Valley City Council's senior executive team. The council has confirmed to the Local Government News Roundup that Mr Overland has commenced in the role of Director of Strategy, Planning and Climate Resilience. Mr Overland announced his retirement from Burnie City Council in June last year, finishing as that council's General Manager in November after 4 years. His appointment at Moonee Valley comes as part of a shake-up of the senior executive team under Chief Executive Officer Helen Sway. Yesterday, the council updated the details on its website, confirming that Mr Overland has joined Sanjib Roy as Director Enabling Services and Ben Harries as Director Service Delivery in the senior team. The position of Director Governance and Performance is vacant. In 2019, Mr Overland became the third CEO in 4 years to be sacked by Whittlesea Council, triggering the appointment of a municipal monitor and the eventual dismissal of the council and replacement with a panel of administrators. Moonee Valley CEO Helen Sway served as a director under Mr Overland at Whittlesea prior to her taking up her current role in August of 2020. Marybeck Council has voted to trial 30 km/h speed limits in select areas of Coburg, Brunswick and Brunswick East, on top of a previous reduction to 40 km/h in 2023. The council will seek approval and funding from the state government for the trial. A council report quoted data showing significant crash reductions from a similar move in Yarra Council, where they saw a 51% drop in all crashes and 70% drop in serious crashes. The council resolution passed by 10 votes to 1 and calls for community engagement in the proposed trial areas and an evaluation report after 12 months. Yarra City Council has decided not to return the vandalised Captain Cook Memorial to Edinburgh Gardens in Fitzroy due to concerns about repair costs and potential future damage. Mayor Stephen Jolly said it was an economic rather than ideological decision. The memorial will cost $15,000 to repair after being removed for safety concerns in January 2024. The council will explore an appropriate institution to take ownership of the memorial, with the Captain Cook Society having already made an offer. 7 Melbourne councils have jointly written to Victoria's Police Minister requesting more frontline police presence in crime hotspots, according to the Herald Sun. The councils, including Glen Eira, Bayside, Kingston, Monash, Port Phillip, Stonington and Boroondara, cite rising community safety concerns and increasing criminal incidents across Melbourne's southeast metropolitan region. They're specifically calling for increased police resourcing, greater visibility and more support for local crime prevention initiatives. The City of Casey is reopening its public gallery at council meetings from next week. A new pre-registration process has been implemented, requiring attendees to register online and bring identification, with a limit of 80 registrations available. Mayor Stephen Cooman said the new process is needed to ensure safe and orderly meetings can be conducted after more than 300 people attended the council's February meeting. The City of Melbourne's draft budget includes significant investments in public safety. $14 million has been allocated for measures that include a doubling of CCTV coverage, increased lighting and new community safety officers. ABC News reported the $732 million budget shows a surplus of $150,000, marking the second consecutive surplus in 5 years. Cleanaway Waste Management has received ACCC approval to acquire Citywide Service Solutions waste and recycling business from the City of Melbourne for $110 million. The deal includes a 35-year lease for the Dynon Road transfer station, in which Cleanaway plans to invest $35 million to expand capacity. Business News Australia reported that the ACCC determined the acquisition would not significantly impact competition in Melbourne's waste disposal services. More news in brief. The Victorian Local Governance Association is currently seeking nominations for 2 board positions with a 3-year term. Nominations are open to councillors from VLGA member councils until the 29th of May. The election process includes an online secret ballot in June, with successful candidates to commence their appointment on July 1st. Hepburn Shire has launched the DV Safe Phone program, which repurposes end-of-life mobile phones to support domestic violence victim survivors. The program has already donated over 11,000 devices across Australia since 2020 through partnerships with more than 400 registered domestic violence agencies, police stations, safe houses and hospitals. And the City of Greater Bendigo is considering a 12-month extension to its e-scooter trial with Beam Mobility, which would expand the current service area despite mixed community feedback, with 66.88% expressing some level of dissatisfaction. The trial has shown potential, recording over 42,000 trips and covering more than 71,000 kilometres since May 2024. I want to remind you about the next Global Executive Live panel from the VLGA and LGIU. It's on next Thursday, the 22nd of May, from 5:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. and discussing a pressing issue for local government. We're exploring the experiences and lessons from around the globe when it comes to civility in public life. And an amazing panel is coming together for this topic. Professor Catherine Needham will be with us from the University of Birmingham in the UK. Joe Miller, Chief Executive of Hutt City Council in New Zealand, is on the panel. Civility expert from Canada, Diane Kaelin-Sucre, Jackie Weatherall, the CEO of the City of Greater Dandenong, and Hannah Phillips, Civility Commission Manager at the Joe Cox Foundation in the UK. Don't miss this high-powered panel discussing a very topical issue for local government and indeed everyone in public life. Tickets are free for VLGA members and alumni and $60 for non-members excluding GST, and you can find out more and reserve your place on the VLGA website. There's a new toolkit available for councils to support the transition to and the uptake of electric vehicles. It's the result of a partnership between the Electric Vehicle Council and the City of Ryde. And to find out more, I'm joined by the EV Council Senior Policy Officer, Cameron Rimington. Cameron, great to have you on the podcast.
So much for having me, Chris.
Now, we talk about these incentives for councils to lead the transition and increase the uptake of electric vehicles. We keep hearing a lot about the explosion of electric vehicles on our roads. Do councils need incentives in this space?
Well, we often do hear a lot when it comes to sort of the EV transition about what federal government can do, what the different states and territories can do. But when it comes to local government, councils are actually holding the pen on a lot of really key areas. Incentives are kind of a little bit of one of them, especially when it comes to councils' own fleets. But there's a number of different areas where actually it's local government that really is going to enable the transition for EVs and that are really best placed to sort of help with the acceleration of uptake. So I guess one of the priorities for us in releasing this report is to sort of step out what we think are the 8 key priority areas where local governments should maybe focus attention at this stage of the EV transition.
And are these 8 areas, they're policy areas, where you see these incentives being needed to be provided?
Often it's not necessarily incentives, it's more sort of enabling, sometimes regulation or sort of council's own activities as well. If we look, for example, at some of the council's fleets, typically they do have a really large volume of vehicles that they run themselves, not just sort of for staff and sort of passenger vehicles, but right up into some of the more workhorse kind of vehicles as well, getting into the kind of freight space a little bit as well, or, you know, sort of workhorses for different council functions. So there's a real opportunity there for councils to sort of lead by example and to sort of get more EVs into their own fleets. Typically, councils would hold those vehicles for 3 to 5 years, and then they're hitting the second-hand market, and that's where that's a really important driver, given so many people buy their next car in the second-hand market. So that's just one area, but instead of sort of offering necessarily money or incentives to the public, there's a bunch of different areas where councils can sort of work a little bit behind the scenes to make sure that all of the right policy settings are there for other people to sort of start getting into these amazing vehicles.
Yeah, I guess what you're demonstrating there is a lot of people might think that council's role is pretty much to put in some charging stations and have that infrastructure there, but it goes far deeper than that, doesn't it?
It does. And look, the charging piece is a really important one that I think will step out. It's definitely on the minds of a lot of councils is what the new charging infrastructure looks like when we're talking about sort of a mass rollout. But you're right, there's a lot of different areas that, you know, people don't necessarily think about that as a council responsibility that do really flow through to the uptake of electric vehicles. My background is a little bit more in the freight space, and it's really interesting that local governments, they own and manage about 50% of the roads in Australia. And at the moment, a lot of the electric trucks that we're starting to see come to market, they can't actually use those, can't legally use some of those council roads, often because they're a little bit too heavy. So it's issues like that where, you know, you don't often think that that's a council responsibility, but at the moment it's one of the big barriers for getting EVs in the freight space, for example.
Right. And I imagine there's a role there for councils to work with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator on enabling in that space.
Absolutely. And I think it's an area where at the national level, the regulator is aware of just how critical councils are. So what we've tried to do in our report is link to some of the fantastic resources that the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator has specifically for councils and council road managers. There's a huge overlap there. And I think there's a growing awareness that actually this is a really big piece of the puzzle that has huge flow-on effects for the broader communities in the given local government area.
We talk a lot on this show about the different challenges that councils have wherever they are in this massive country of ours. So your toolkit takes into account the different needs and challenges that a rural or regional might have compared to a metropolitan council, yes?
It is, yeah, it's a little bit chalk and cheese with that. And we've necessarily, because we're hoping that this can be an off-the-shelf resource for, the 500 or so councils that are out there. Obviously, every one of those councils is at a different stage in their EV transition. And as you said, they're facing significantly different sort of challenges. So we've tried to, it's necessarily a bit of a broad document that's trying to be all things to all people. And so there's obviously different councils will pick and choose bits of it that are most relevant to them. I think probably one of the biggest splits between those kind of metro and more regional councils is this question around sort of public charging infrastructure for EVs. We know that, 90% of charging happens at home. So charging at home is going to be more than adequate for most people most of the time in Australia. But where there is a complication is often in more dense, built-up urban councils where there's a higher proportion of people living in strata or apartments where they don't actually have at-home charging. And so that's where the on-street or sort of public charging piece really comes into its own, which is not necessarily something that regional councils have to sort of think about as much.
No, true. So you've partnered with the City of Ryde on developing this toolkit. Why the City of Ryde? Is it a particular test case for you?
Well, the City of Ryde is actually a member of the Electric Vehicle Council, and a long-standing one at that. So our collaboration goes back better part of a decade now. And the City of Ryde, they're by no means the only council, but they were really strong out of the gates. I think as far back as 2017, they were already thinking about, okay, what's our strategy for transport more broadly, but what role do EVs play in that? So City of Ryde is obviously kind of the North Shore of Sydney, so quite a dense sort of urban area, very very much an urban setting. But there's the Macquarie Park out there is this huge business component to it as well. Really really enormous kind of semi-industrial area, and quite a diverse mix of different use cases when it comes to EVs. So I think they were really hot off the press or early in sort of starting to adopt EVs at a trickle to begin with. I think they started off with just 2 EVs in their own fleet, but starting to poll their residents and survey them about what the future might look like. And I think that's probably one of the key lessons for councils more broadly is just get started. Like you don't need to have to try and do the entire EV transition in one fell swoop. Chip away at it, start with a couple of vehicles in your own fleet, a couple of chargers, and start to troubleshoot and make changes where you need to. Our resource pack is hopefully going to help sort of focus on key areas and areas where councils can kind of learn from each other, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel every time.
Does the pack also help with councils that are looking to perhaps articulate in a way that they haven't been able to in the past the links to sustainability and their broader climate action plans?
A little bit. I mean, it's one of the things that we really, our first priority areas that we're encouraging councils to look at is really setting those targets for sustainability. And a lot of the time that does need to be driven from the top, from the executive or councillors themselves. Those sustainability settings really do make a huge difference then in framing up what council needs to do for electric vehicles and how that's going to sort of flow through to the broader community as well. So definitely setting the sustainability targets is one, and then setting targets internally as well about council's own fleet, which is obviously a huge part of the broader sustainability piece. I think one of the really encouraging things is that most, or a really high volume of those 500 or so councils in Australia, they're already at this stage. They know that they need to be setting targets. A lot of them already have net zero targets. It's a question then of hopefully using this pack to sort of bed that down into actual council's transport strategy and what that looks like. So yeah, there's huge linkages there, and we're really encouraged that so many councils do have a broader sustainability agenda. Now it's a question of having that flow through directly to the electric vehicles piece.
Do you think the role of the local council vis-a-vis EV take up and growth down the track, say 5 to 10 years from now, it will change considerably?
I think there's definitely a role for future-proofing the EV transition. So we've talked a little bit about the kind of rollout of charging infrastructure, and that's going to be more and less important for different councils, but it's definitely going to be a big piece of the picture. And ensuring that the rollout is done in a really smart way. We don't want to be overbuilding infrastructure, but also don't want to be underbuilding it. So the kind of decisions that councils make now will really impact that kind of 10, 15-year sort of time frame. And particularly when we start going regional, that charging infrastructure is a huge priority, but a huge opportunity as well for regional councils. I think the other one, and this is a bit of a focus in our report as well, is about sort of tinkering with council's own sort of development application processes to make sure that the new dwellings that are being built and that are going to continue to be built are ready for EVs. EV-ready homes is the way we like to talk about it. There's a lot of work that's happened with the National Construction Code, and we're really hoping that through this pack, we can sort of embed some of those principles in council's own sort of planning rules and planning regulations, so that for the long term, councils are really building out dwellings that are ready for what we know is coming, and that's electric vehicles en masse.
We've touched on a few of those policy areas. I think you mentioned there are 8 in the pack. We haven't got time to go through all of them, Cameron, but of course the best thing people can do, whatever council they're in, is download this pack and have a look for themselves. How do they do that?
We've got a bit of a download form on our website, you'll fill that out and it'll take you through to the full pack. It is a free resource, and we're hoping councils can sort of share that around with different stakeholders. We're really keen, though, in understanding who in council is starting to access this information as well, because it's not just the council in general have broad-ranging responsibilities when it comes to the EV transition. There are different parts within council that really need to be talking to each other for this transition. So it's not just the councillors themselves or the executive, but it goes to questions like the procurement team and the fleet management team and the road management team. So really interested to not just have people download the report, but understand who in councils are accessing this information, and then of course to get feedback on it about what's useful and what councils might need more information on going forward.
You've touched on one of my pet topics there, Cameron, the silos that exist in council organisations and how we can work around that in important areas like this. Thank you very much for your time today. We'll put the link into the show notes so people can find that, and we'd love to keep in touch as this develops down the track. Absolutely. Love to. Thanks for having me, Chris. That's Cameron Rimington, Senior Policy Officer with the Electric Vehicle Council of Australia. Let's get back into the news now, and heading our New South Wales report, medical dramas for 2 of the state's mayors. LG New South Wales President Phyllis Miller, the Mayor of Forbes-shire, has been admitted to intensive care at St Vincent's Hospital in Sydney due to a sudden illness. Vice President Claire Ponton has temporarily assumed presidential duties. The incident occurred while Councillor Miller was in Sydney for a Country Mayors Association meeting focused on healthcare advocacy for rural, regional and remote areas. Mayor Patricia White of Shoalhaven City Council is on a leave of absence until next week after fracturing her collarbone in a fall at home. Mayor White was recovering from a virus at the time and was treated in hospital before returning home to recuperate. Deputy Mayor Peter Wilkins will be fulfilling mayoral duties during her absence. IPART has announced its determinations after assessing 6 special rate variation applications from New South Wales councils. The tribunal has approved the applications from Federation Council, Gunnedah Shire Council, Shoalhaven City Council and Upper Hunter Shire Council. It's partially approved the application from Northern Beaches Council and did not approve the application from North Sydney Council. It's also assessed 2 minimum rate increase applications, approving one from Gunnedah Shire and rejecting one from North Sydney. The Sydney Morning Herald has more detail on the implications for ratepayers in those affected LGAs. The City of Sydney has committed nearly $2.7 billion over the next decade for urban transformation, community infrastructure and new facilities. Key projects include the development of Town Hall Square and initiatives to support outdoor dining and community groups. The city's draft budget, endorsed by the council this week, includes over $631 million for operational expenses and a $276 million capital works budget in the next financial year. New South Wales councils are facing a staggering $3.4 billion road maintenance backlog, according to a new report from the NRMA. ABC News reported that regional areas are bearing the brunt of the damage following 3 years of unprecedented wet weather events. While state and federal governments have allocated some funding to address the crisis, local mayors are calling for a more sustainable long-term funding solution rather than temporary splashes of cash. The New South Wales Government's Fresh Start program is investing $252 million to fund 1,300 new apprentices, trainees and cadets in local councils over 6 years. More than 1,000 positions have already been approved for this year, with over 60% in regional areas. Sydney Council has unanimously rejected a proposal for a 24-hour McDonald's restaurant in Redfern, following strong opposition from residents, police and the Aboriginal community. The Guardian reported that opponents' concerns ranged from crime prevention to health impacts. And Northern Beaches Council has given the state government's new e-scooter and e-bike rules a mixed scorecard. It's welcomed speed limits on e-scooters, a review of road rules and infrastructure investment, along with commitment to boost rider and driver education. However, the council is concerned about a lack of regulation on the speed of e-bikes on footpaths and shared paths and the risks posed to pedestrians. To Queensland, 5 Fraser Coast councillors are under investigation by Queensland's council watchdog over allegations of a secret meeting about local caravan parks. The Fraser Coast Chronicle reported that the Office of the Independent Assessor is looking into claims the councillors met behind closed doors before a controversial vote on the future of the Torquay Beachfront Caravan Park. The investigation centres on whether transparency rules were breached when councillors allegedly discussed the park's fate outside of official channels. Brisbane City Council is seeking state and federal funding for major restoration work on the 85-year-old Story Bridge. Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner has warned that without assistance, the council may need to consider options like tolls or levies to fund the 15-year project. That's according to a report from The Age. And Scenic Rim Regional Council has formed a special advisory committee to maximise opportunities from the 2032 Olympic Games. The committee will include representatives from local sporting and community groups, government agencies and industry. The council is aiming to ensure the Scenic Rim captures the social and economic benefits of having the Games in Queensland. Here are some more news briefs. Central Coast Council is hosting a free live screening of the Ninja A-League Women's Grand Final at Industry Group Stadium this Sunday, where the Central Coast Mariners will face Melbourne Victory. The community event will feature activities including inflatable games, a DJ, food and beverages, and opportunities to meet the men's team players. The City of Victor Harbor has won 2 prestigious awards at the LG Professionals SA Leadership Excellence Awards. It was recognised for its groundbreaking Accessibility in Action initiative, supporting South Australia's first blind council member, and for its successful cross-council collaboration on the Murray River and Fleurieu Study Hubs program. And Lismore City Council is offering $15,000 grants to stimulate the construction of smaller, smarter and more affordable homes across the Lismore area. Support is available across 6 categories, including first home buyers, flood-affected relocations and community housing providers. This is the Local Government News Roundup, brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with a new episode of VLGA Connect coming out later today. And thanks to Symphony 3 for their support for the program. Check out their Smart Glue solution, helping your council provide simple, connected customer experiences. Some select stories from other parts of Australia now. Tasmania firstly, and Launceston City Council has approved plans for a new $20 million northern hospice within the Launceston General Hospital precinct. The development will provide 12 beds for community members with life-limiting conditions in a home-like environment. It follows 17 years of community campaigning, with the federally funded facility to begin construction mid-year, with completion expected late next year. The City of Hobart is launching a 12-month trial for soft plastics recycling at McRoby's Gully Waste Management Centre, partnering with Recycle Smart to collect and process recyclable materials that can be scrunched into a ball. The collected soft plastics will be transported interstate, where they'll be recycled into plastic-derived oil for new products, such as asphalt's additive. To South Australia, Adelaide City Council's Lord Mayor, Jane Lomax-Smith, has reportedly issued a stern warning to councillors about their disruptive behaviour during meetings. The Adelaide Advertiser reports that the warning came after a contentious budget meeting last month, where 3 councillors walked out in protest over a proposed $600 minimum rate increase. The Lord Mayor has called out sniggering, interruptions and potentially bullying conduct on the part of some councillors, and said she'll exercise powers available to ensure meetings are conducted in an orderly way. The council has been plagued by a range of issues, including defamation action between members, accusations of intimidating behaviour towards women, and difficulties maintaining quorum after 4 central ward positions were recently voided. The council has elected Philip Martin as its new Deputy Lord Mayor. Following the voiding of those 4 council positions, the council amended its meeting procedures to allow Councillor Martin to remain in the room during the vote, where he was the sole nominee. Northern Areas Council has completed a required representation review, which will result in 2 major changes from next year. The mayor will be elected by the whole community rather than chosen by the council, and the current 4-ward system will be abolished in favour of area-wide representation. The changes will see the council comprised of an elected mayor and 8 area councillors. Mayor Sue Scarman said the new model will ensure decisions are made from a whole-of-community perspective. And the District Council of Coober Pedy is proposing a $7.5 million upgrade to its drive-in theatre, contingent on securing external grant funding with no cost to ratepayers. Despite that commitment, the proposal has raised questions about the council's priorities, given its challenging financial position. More on that from the Adelaide Advertiser. And in Western Australia, the City of Wanneroo has implemented speed limit reductions from 50 to 40 kilometres per hour on 2 busy streets in Jindalee and Butler, following community concerns about speeding and pedestrian safety. The city announced that its application to Main Roads WA had been approved after a comprehensive study of traffic in the Butler-Jindalee area. It follows similar successful speed reductions in other parts of Wanneroo and aims to significantly increase pedestrian survival rates in the event of accidents. And the City of Stirling is reviewing its approach to outdoor basketball courts due to increasing demand and noise complaints from residents. Perth Now reported that the city currently has 38 facilities, despite being Western Australia's most populous local government area, with 234,000 residents. A report addressing planning challenges and noise mitigation strategies will be presented to the council in November, following a councillor-introduced motion highlighting the need for more facilities, particularly in high-density areas with smaller backyards. Let's round out this edition now with some select stories from overseas. From Scotland, Moray Council in the northeast of the country has approved new guidelines that will restrict mobile phone usage in schools starting from August. Phones will be banned in primary schools and required to be turned off and out of sight in secondary schools. A council spokesperson said the policy was aimed at reducing bullying and harassment and inappropriate use that detracts from learning. A survey that received more than 3,000 responses found 73% in favour of the ban. That included strong support from parents and staff, but a mixed response from pupils, with a majority of those against the ban. In Virginia, in the US, Richmond City Council has fired its Inspector General James Osuna after 6 years. The decision was made in a closed session meeting and no specific reasons have been made public. The Office of the Inspector General is the city's government watchdog, investigating waste, fraud and abuse, and it's been conducting investigations into retirement payments and potential abuse of city funds. The city announced that an interim IG will manage the ongoing work while the council oversees a transition in leadership. VPM News reported that the IG's office has come under scrutiny for not publishing reports for public review as required for nearly 5 years. Thompson City Council in Manitoba, Canada has reversed a decision made last month to remove public comment periods at council meetings following significant public opposition. CBC News reported that the council has voted 4-2 this week to reinstate the bylaw. The city's mayor, Colleen Smook, was one of the two dissenting voices. She said she's concerned about potential abuse of the open mic format. And in New Zealand this week, long-standing Bay of Plenty Regional Councillor Paula Thompson has announced her resignation, effective May 23rd. Ms Thompson said her personal circumstances have changed and she's no longer able to commit the time and effort required to be an effective councillor. The seat will remain vacant until local body elections in October. Prior to her election in 2010, Ms Thompson served as Chief Executive Officer of Tauranga City Council for 7 years. Auckland Council is intensifying its investigation into asbestos-containing material that has been washing up on East Auckland beaches. While the risk to the public is considered low, the council advises against handling the contaminated cement board fragments and has contacted local schools through the Ministry of Education to ensure safety during beach activities. And Huranui District Council has voted 8-3 to establish a Water Services Council-controlled organisation in partnership with Kaikoura District Council, allowing for increased borrowing capacity of up to $500,000 of revenue for water infrastructure management. The decision comes after receiving 53 public submissions, with Kaikoura set to make its final decision on the 28th of May. The Otago Daily Times reported that the door remains open for other councils, including Waimakariri, to join the coalition. That's the latest from the Local Government News Roundup. This edition, number 452, recorded on the morning of Friday the 16th of May 2025. If you have comments or feedback and story ideas, you can email us at lgweeklynews@gmail.com. More information about this episode, including story links, can be found at www.lgnewsroundup.com. The podcast is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with a new episode of VLGA Connect coming out later today and the next Global Executive Live panel coming up on Thursday the 22nd of May. Support for the podcast comes from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. The Local Government News Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Until next time, thanks for listening and bye for now. I'm thrilled to welcome Symphony 3 to the Local Government News Roundup family. If you're a local council, you know how challenging it can be to manage data across all your different systems. That's where Symphony 3 comes in. They've developed Smart Glue, a platform that integrates over 55 council systems, automating data flow without the need for manual work. It turns confusion into simplicity. With Smart Glue, councils save time, reduce errors and empower staff to focus on what really matters. Their clients see a real difference, up to 20% boost in productivity, with savings of over $30,000 per integration every year. Symphony 3 helps councils work smarter, faster and more efficiently, all while better supporting the communities they serve.